Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of political polling and voter behavior. Let's get started.
I'm excited about this topic. So, have you ever wondered why polls sometimes get it so wrong?
Oh, absolutely. It's like, we rely on polls to understand where elections are headed, but they can be
Yeah.
surprisingly unreliable at times.
Right, and it's not just about who's leading in the polls, but how they actually work.
Exactly. So, political polls are essentially surveys of public opinion collecting
Hmm.
data on voter preferences, policy issues, and approval ratings.
And they're conducted by all sorts of organizations, right?
Yeah, everything from news agencies to universities and private polling firms. They all play a role in shaping the political landscape
Right.
by providing insights into what voters are thinking.
But here's the thing, if they're so influential, why do they sometimes miss the mark?
Well, that's where things get interesting. One major issue is sampling errors. If a poll doesn't survey a diverse
Yeah.
group, it might skew the results significantly.
Like what happened in the 2016 US election.
Exactly. Many polls underrepresented rural voters, leading to unexpected outcomes. It's like they missed a whole segment of the population, and that had
Right.
big consequences.
It makes you wonder how these sampling errors happen in the first place.
Well, it can be due to the methodology. For instance, relying heavily on landline phones when most people use cell phones now
Hmm.
can result in a less representative sample.
That's a good point. And what about social desirability bias?
Oh, that's another big factor. Sometimes people don't answer truthfully, especially on controversial issues. They might say what they think is more socially
Yeah.
acceptable rather than their true opinion.
So, in tight elections, voters might privately support one candidate but tell pollsters something else.
Exactly. It adds a layer of complexity to interpreting poll results.
It's almost like polls are as much an art as they are a science.
Haha, that's a great way to put it. And let's not forget about late deciding voters.
Right. Voters who make up their minds at the last minute can really throw off predictions.
Definitely. In the 2020 US election, many voters changed their preferences after final debates and key
Hmm.
events, making it hard for polls to keep up.
So, how can polls improve accuracy in light of these challenges?
Pollsters are turning to larger sample sizes and better weighting techniques. They're also using AI and big data analytics to refine their predictions, which is
Yeah.
pretty exciting.
It is. But then again, some people argue that polls might manipulate public opinion rather than reflect it.
That's a valid concern. There's controversy around media outlets pushing biased polls to favor certain candidates, which
Right.
undermines trust in the polling process.
That makes me question whether we should rely so heavily on polls at all.
Well, polls do have their benefits. They help candidates understand voter priorities and provide insights into trends and public concerns, which can
Hmm.
encourage voter engagement.
True, but if they're inaccurate, they might discourage people from voting by creating a false sense of certainty.
That's the downside. It's like telling people the race is already decided, which can
Yeah.
lead to lower voter turnout.
So it's a double edged sword.
Exactly. And that brings us to voter behavior. Social and demographic factors play a huge role in elections.
Like age, race, ethnicity, and education level?
Yes, for instance, older voters tend to be more conservative, while younger voters lean progressive,
Right.
and different groups prioritize different issues.
So politicians tailor their messages to target specific demographics.
Exactly, it's strategic. They know that voter turnout varies across different
Hmm.
groups, so they focus on those who are more likely to vote.
And then there are swing voters and independents.
Yes, they can make or break an election. Swing states like Pennsylvania and Michigan often decide national outcomes, so
Yeah.
campaigns pour resources into those areas.
But isn't that a problem with the electoral college system?
Some argue that it is. They feel it ignores solidly blue or red states in favor of battleground states, which
Right.
might not be fair representation.
It's a controversial topic for sure. Do you think the electoral college should be reformed?
Well, it's complicated. On one hand, it ensures that less populous states have a
Hmm.
voice, but on the other hand, it can sideline the majority's preference.
It's definitely a debate worth having.
Absolutely. And as for the future of polling, AI and data analytics are playing a bigger role.
Right. Using technology to track voter sentiment in real time through social media and online searches.
Exactly. But that comes with its own challenges, like social media echo chambers influencing how people form
Yeah.
opinions, making it harder to get unbiased data.
So, how can voters use polls responsibly?
Great question. Voters should recognize that polls are estimates, not guarantees, and they
Right.
should look at multiple polls rather than relying on a single source.
And being aware of who conducted the poll and any potential biases.
Exactly. It's all about being informed and critical.
This makes me think, are polling methods inherently flawed, or can they truly be improved?
I believe there's always room for improvement. With better technology and methodologies, we can
Mhm.
make polls more accurate. But we also need transparency and trust in the process.
Definitely. But perhaps we shouldn't rely on them entirely for making decisions.
Agreed. Polls should inform us, not dictate our actions. It's important for voters to stay engaged regardless of what the polls say and exercise their
Yeah.
right to vote.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Haha. So, in conclusion, political polling is a powerful but imperfect tool. Voter behavior is complex and influenced by many
Right.
factors. And while polls have improved with technology, challenges like sampling errors and bias still affect accuracy.
The big question remains, should we rely on polls or do they do more harm than good?
That's something for our listeners to ponder.
Indeed. Well, thanks for this enlightening discussion.
Thank you. And thank you to our listeners for joining us on the Hey Gem podcast. Until next time.